We are streaming. All right. We're live on Twitch. We're live on YouTube. And we're live on X. I got Restream set up. And if anybody wants to just give me confirmation that's going on. Yeah, cool. And let's see. We're just gonna wait for people to fill in here. We'll start in about 10 minutes, but I wanted to let people know this was happening. I'm Moon Makes Magic on YouTube. You could probably search the stream. You could also go see Shaw Makes Magic on Twitter. I think it'll be streaming on X. We're going to go over everything from, yes, Jen, I'm recording. Don't worry. We're going to go over everything from I have never used npm or Node.js. I should add that, install Node, right? Well, what is Node? What is Node? The fuck is TypeScript? Why make an agent in TypeScript? That's probably a lot of people's agent burning desires. If anybody wants to go on X and check, but I do think I checked the audio in the recording. It sounded okay to me, and I haven't checked the audio in the stream, but I assume it's probably working. If you are not on the Discord space and you're coming from anywhere else, or you are seeing this as a recording later, I am responding to people who are posting in the Discord stage, and I am just answering their questions. So if I jump out and start saying weird stuff that comes out of nowhere, probably you should be in the Discord and watching this in our Discord so that you can see what people are saying. I cannot see anyone's comments on any other client right now. I'm just not even going to look. And the Discord is really where our partners all hang. So I feel like it's good to be among friends and kind of keep it tight. So the first hour, maybe hour and a half of this is going to be development basics. We're just going to go through just very basically Node.js, TypeScript, npm. If you use Windows, I'm not going to show you this, but maybe I'll link to WSL and explain why you would want that. Installing pnpm and why you would want that. Cloning the repo, switching branches, pulling the latest changes, just some basic Git stuff, which is probably really boring if you use Git, but might be very helpful if you haven't. I just want you to see kind of some of my flow. And then we're going to create a character. We're going to run the character, and then I'm going to attempt to add the character to Discord without leaking my key. That's generally the plan here. And then we'll do a Q&A on all of the basic stuff around that. Just getting set up, making a character, you're ready to go and get started. Then we're going to get into, I wouldn't say, it's advanced, but it's still kind of the 101 of this whole thing, which is agent concepts. And we're going to look at where the documentation site is. We're going to review the architecture, just do where is all the code? We'll talk about the concepts. I'll show you some of the clients, which are basically how we connect out from this computer out to the rest of the world through Discord or Twitter or whatever. And then I'll show you some of the critical abstractions that make Eliza unique, but not that unique. These are fairly borrowed concepts in agents specifically. I will give you a few, I should add this, evaluators versus reflection. I'll kind of give you some ideas of there's what the sort of standard is, and then what we're doing and how those are kind of related to each other, right? And we're just going to hack our way through. Maybe I'll even, we'll bring this down to the end. And we're just going to make an action, an evaluator, and a provider. And what I want to do is, I was going to do a get latest news, because I can go get a news API key. But I was thinking maybe the personality score would be kind of good. And so maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll just have an action to get the latest news, and we'll try that, just get it from an API, see how that goes. And then we can extract the personality score from the evaluator. Do we like this person? And then we'll add an example provider at the end to actually bring that back into the context for, we do like this person. And I might just really hack this together, reading some files out of JSON, not even using the database or something. I'm just going to do something stupidly simple. But I think that would be like a good example of how to hack our way through. And maybe I'll change that completely when we get to it because I decided I hate that. But I think what will be helpful would be to go through and just understand what these three abstractions are and how you could assemble like some really complex stuff just from these abstractions, right? I hope that all makes sense. We are 5 minutes away from getting started here. If anybody has any questions, please post them in the Discord chat. I will repeat your question and then I will answer it. For the Q&A, it would be great if people want to hop up on stage and ask questions and we can just kind of riff. I have a hard stop at 9 o'clock, so we have to get through all of this content in 3 hours. But I think by the end of 3 hours, you're gonna be bored as shit, or at least of me yapping. So I think it'll be good. I'll certainly be tired. Um, cool. I'm seeing that always lost some information during agent runtime. I think that was something maybe I should add here is I'll just add um, agent runtime just to kind of go over that a little bit. So this is recorded. I will post the recording assuming that nothing bad happens and I'm able to record it successfully. If anybody else wants to record it too, I would appreciate that. And it will be streamed, so maybe one of the streaming platforms is recording it, but I'm not sure if I said that. People asking about that. If anybody has any other questions, please feel free to ask them now. Otherwise, we'll kind of start getting into it in just about 4 minutes. I think I will just quickly be right back, let people fill up, and we'll get started right away. I'm going to check the mute just to make sure muting works. And so I will be muted. Okay. If anybody would like to post the YouTube link in Discord, you're welcome to do that. We are ready to begin. It is 2 minutes till 6. I'm just gonna give a little tap in the announcements. Is that what we do? Ancient Dev School is starting now. And let me just probably grab the link to this one. Invite. Okay. I hope people get it. We're doing this. We've got 42 people here. And we probably got some people on X and people on YouTube. Let's roll. So the first thing we're going to talk about is just like the most basic stuff. And if you are a developer, the first hour of this is going to be pretty boring. But I think it's really important that we give everybody just like from the beginning, like what would you do if you had never used like written code before in your life? And I'm just going to start from like that assumption. And I promise that by the end, this will be a 3-hour stream. By the end, we will try to get you up to like, okay, I understand how this stuff kind of vaguely works. I feel like I could learn this myself. that is my true wish, right? So we're gonna do more advanced ones after this, and then we'll kind of have people catching up um, as by watching this recorded. And we'll be doing this in Discord twice a week for about 3 hours as we try to skill up our devs. I think this is going to start mostly with us, me just giving this like kind of tutorial. And then what I'd like as a format is to actually work through things with devs. We might do like create a new plugin, create a new client, work with some of our partners to do some cool stuff, some integrations, talk about some different just I want to get everything out of my head and into as many of your heads as possible so you can take this and run with this. We are at ground zero of something brand new. If you do this and you run with this, you could change your life and the lives of everyone around you. And there's generational wealth, and then there's like you created an AI that continues to make you generational wealth. If that's your motivation, I really encourage you to get into this now. If you just love AI agents and you just don't know where to start, this is where you start. And yeah, we'll keep going. We'll keep going with this as long as we can, as long as people need help and there's more to teach. Okay, so welcome to the first Agent Dev School. My name is Shaw. I've been developing for a very long time. I got a computer when I was a very small child, and it is just like, it is a second language to me. I write code in many languages. Sometimes I write in Python, sometimes I write in C# or C++ or C. Sometimes I write in Rust. But I truly love JavaScript and the JavaScript ecosystem, and I truly love TypeScript. And we're going to just do a little bit of walk around the internet to kind of start. So there's a guy, and his name is Brendan Eich. And you might know him because he created some cool stuff, including the JavaScript. And let's go to his Wikipedia page. He also is one of the founders of Mozilla, and he created Brave, right? This guy. And famously, he created JavaScript in 10 days. And it did not have most of the features that it has now. And it was like a really, really rudimentary scripting language. At the time, Java was a really popular language, and they wanted to bring the kind of like Java syntax into into the browser, so that browser, people making websites could have some basic control of their website and do some basic interactivity. So he put this together in 10 days, drank a lot of coffee, very famously shipped the first version of JavaScript into Netscape, and it, eventually people forgot that Java as an applet would be a thing, and they just used JavaScript for literally everything, right? So that kind of started with Brendan Eich, and this like 1995, right? I mean, this was way in the early days. And I, as a kid, I grew up in the Bay Area. I had internet when I was like 7. I had JavaScript. I had this in around 1996 maybe. Fast forward, and people realize, wait. What if we run the JavaScript as a server? Because we already all know JavaScript. We've been working with it forever. That sounds pretty good. And so people realized, well, we could actually create a runtime, which is itself written in like C++, but it uses the same engine that we have on in the browser, in any browser. Let me hide this window real quick. Which is we have different JavaScript engines, but the one that we're used to in Chrome is V8, right? The V8 JavaScript engine. And basically Node was like, well, let's just take the V8 JavaScript engine and allow people to run whatever they want. And we can create servers, we can create applications, we can create services, and you can write all of it in JavaScript, and then you can run it anywhere on any computer, right? And so a guy named Ryan Dahl started it, but it became a very large open source project. It's been around since 2009. It's very popular. And pretty much everything like that has happened in a browser in the recent times, from React to Next.js and Express, all these other popular frameworks are running in Node.js for the most part, or using Node.js to compile down browser JavaScript, right? Some people in the chat have added like a nice fun thread on how Brendan Eich wrote JavaScript in 9 days, not 10. And yeah, so I think there's some good stuff if you come to our Discord and you're not there. People are posting some cool stuff in the chat. So yeah, so this starts with the V8 JavaScript engine, which is like, okay, I'm going to run whatever JavaScript you want in this nice little sandbox, and then it's got like kind of it's unless you want to do specific things on your file system, it gives you like a pretty nice secure sandbox place to run stuff, and just do things, right? Very useful. Um, so Node.js is like, the thing that you install to then run this code. And you can compile applications like .exe from a Node.js application, but typically we just like clone the Node.js application and we run it, right? Cool. So then we come along with this thing called TypeScript. And basically the problem with JavaScript being written in like 10 days, the beauty of it is it's like just the most flexible language. You can do like just the most insane dark art ninja stuff with it, and it's not particularly computationally efficient. It pretty much casts all integers all numbers to be like just the largest size, in memory that any language could do, pretty much by default. It does a lot of things that people don't love, but it's super flexible, and and you can, just jam things through it and make it work. The problem is that it doesn't have types. And so a type would be like, okay, let's say I have a client, right? And I want some things in my client, like, I don't know, it has a name, it has a description, and some run thing or whatever, right? So I can have this client type, and I can say, okay, I'm going way too fast. Let's see. Let's just like not even get here yet. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about TypeScript, and then we'll kind of get back into like making a type. But generally, the idea is there's a thing called type theory, and you could have a type like, and your type could be fruit, right? And your fruit has a name and a color, and this would be like a valid type in TypeScript kind of thing. Okay, and then you could also have subtypes, right? You could say type apple, and you could say, well, that's actually a fruit, and it has this other value called is sweet, and so this is a type. But actually, and this kind of is cool because then I could say like, okay, well now I want to have a apple, and I'm going to make a new constant value. I'm sorry, this is going to go way over your heads if you don't know how to code. I'm sorry, but just go with me for a second. I'm going to create this apple, and it has the type apple that I just wrote. And that guarantees, as long as it is the type apple, that it has to have certain values. It has to have is sweet, because that's part of the apple. And it has to inherit everything from fruit, right? Which is name and color. So this and is a logical operator or a Boolean add. It adds the fruit and the new stuff we want into this thing we call an apple. And so this comes from math, from type theory. There's a whole world on that. But essentially, this says, hey, I want a new variable. I could call it var for variable. And if you think in like high school math, like y equals mx plus b, this is just like y, right? Var y. But y is not a value. It's actually an apple, right? Oh my God. And this apple has to have these values, or it's not a valid apple. How could a type not, how could an apple not have a color? That would be ridiculous, right? So this idea of typing is very important to certain languages, like Rust or C++ are statically typed languages, and they determine when you're compiling your code what type things are, and then they check them and they yell at you if it doesn't work. Oh, I'm getting some comments here. I'm going to actually add like, what am I using for dev? People are asking what I'm using to to do all this magic. Yeah, I'm using cursor. So I have these types, and this is all great, right? But this actually does. This is like how C++ works, how Rust works, but it's not how JavaScript works. JavaScript is just like var apple equals some stuff, and you kind of just assume like, okay, cool, I put some values in, but there's no contract, there's no requirement. I could say like, I don't know, blah is true, And so this is really cool because it's super flexible. I could just do like something, whatever. I could add any values I want. And this is an object. This is a nice little object. But the problem is what happens if I like do something to fruit, apple. And so if you remember like y equals mx plus b, right? Like just old school high school stuff. What this is actually y equals mx. Right? So this is like a function. And that function could actually be like y equal, well, let's just say that there's no mx. It's y equals mx. Instead of m, we'd actually have like do something to fruit. And this is called a function. And what a function does is a function like is something you call on something to then affect it. It could get something, it's basically like a math function, right? It could get something back, it could change a value, it could do anything. And we call a function by like just calling the name of the function, like this, and then passing something in. So like a good example of this would be like function do something to fruit, and it just logs the fruit's name, right? But the fruit doesn't have a name, right? So it's like fruit.name. And then if I call this function that's supposed to log the fruit name to console, it's going to give me an undefined value because there is no name in this apple. And so this is a really, like, I know this is very high level if you haven't been a programmer, but I want you to understand that this was a really annoying problem. Well, how do I know that there's a name in this fruit? Every fruit should have a name. Why doesn't this one have a name? Why is it coming back undefined? And many JavaScript developers for many years have been like, why isn't that what I think it is? How do I know that it should be that thing? And more annoyingly, if I type in like fruit and I press dot, it would be really nice if it could show me the things that are in it. Like some what's called IntelliSense, right? Like, oh, you should actually give me the options that are available to me, recommended, so I don't have to see how this is like AI recommendation. But generally with IntelliSense, it would actually like, you know, say, oh, these are the options in the fruit that you could use. But it's untyped. And so that was the problem with JavaScript, right? It's really useful. Now there's another language that has this same problem called Python. Python is like magically flexible. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff with it, but it's fundamentally untyped. However, Python added types native to the language. So now you can import typings and you can actually add types as a package into your Python, and that's kind of becoming the trend. The same thing is happening to JavaScript, but it hasn't happened yet. So what we made instead, I believe Microsoft made this, or at least they own it. Yeah, it's designed by Microsoft. Is they wanted to have an experience in JavaScript that was similar to their other languages, like C# and C++. And they wanted, so they basically made this type system that lets you guarantee certain things about your code, right? So I definitely know that if it's a fruit and the argument into this function is a fruit, then it has to have these values. It has to. And it will yell at me and prevent me from compiling my code if it doesn't. It does it like a little type checker. And so these type checker can be ignored. And it's not actually changing the fundamental output code because the browser still has to run the JavaScript and not this TypeScript. But it gives you, when you run build, and I say pnpm run build here, it will actually go through and check the types, make sure they're valid, and prevent me from building this if they're not. Give me the warnings and show me what I need to do to correct it, right? So TypeScript basically gives us the benefit of the type safety of other languages like C++, C#, Java, Rust. Gives us this kind of static type safety, but it doesn't actually enforce the types unless we ask it to and run the TS type checker. And it eventually compiles down into the same JavaScript, which is fundamentally untyped, right? So that's why we're using TypeScript. That was a very long thing, but I hope you understand now. We are building this in JavaScript, technically, but it's actually TypeScript that gets compiled down to JavaScript and then run. Okay, so what is TypeScript? It is a typed version of JavaScript that the types actually get stripped out and it gets compiled to JavaScript. Why make an agent in TypeScript? Well, the entire web is based on TypeScript. JavaScript. And most developers now who are building with Next.js or React are using TypeScript because they like the typing. It's very popular. And it is the most popular language in the world. Like JavaScript is by far has more developers doing more different things than any other language in the world. And many of the applications you use every day, including Discord, are written in TypeScript. In fact, Microsoft Teams, probably Zoom, a lot of the major communications platforms that need to work in the browser and on your phone are written in a JavaScript runtime, and then they connect down to like a native runtime, like React Native or Tori is a good example, Capacitor.js, and they have these plugins which can then talk to the more complicated native code, which is in like C++ or something, or Swift or Objective C, like on a iPhone, or like Kotlin or something like that on or Java on an Android. And so you can have that code still, but then at the application layer where like devs are actually writing code, then what you're going to end up with is a lot of TypeScript. Most applications now, I think, are tending to be made in TypeScript. Another thing that happened is we got this, is that people figured they could like write apps in Google Chrome. Um, and um, and so things like Discord are actually written in Chromium, right? And that's kind of the old stuff. You can see like, yeah, sorry. The framework is called Electron. So Electron is a very popular app. It basically runs Chromium. You wrap all your stuff into it and make an application. The newer, hotter stuff is like Tori, right? Which is Rust-based. And you can use Tori to make apps that run anywhere, but then it still runs TypeScript on the front. I love Tori, and I recommend that this is the way to build stuff now. This is the hot new thing. So if you want to build native apps or like bring Eliza or agents to your iPhone, you should definitely look at this. This is the hotness. Cool. So I I hope that kind of gives you an explanation of like the higher level there. Why are we making agents for TypeScript? It's the most popular language for developers. I believe that worse is better. A lot of agent devs use Python, but TypeScript is really good at streaming. Like I'm dealing with audio streams, and I gotta send them other places. And I'll say when I say TypeScript, I mean JavaScript and TypeScript. It's really good at HTTP, like dealing with browser HTTP stuff. Our agents can run in the browser natively, so you can make games that like call services externally, or call like a completion API for some OpenAI or something like that. But it can actually run in the browser, and it can be running on embedded systems because we can like compile it down with Rust and the V8 runtime. So we can put this kind of anywhere. That's like a big part of what we're trying to do. And I think that flexibility just gives it it's just really a lot harder to deploy Python in certain areas and certain places, and it's just not as flexible. And I think that's really important. The last thing is that TypeScript and JavaScript rocket async. They have great async handling, great async patterns. It's really easy to work with async await patterns and promises and all that stuff. And Python, the async is just so awkward. It's like you really have to really think out your application a lot more in order to deal with like lots of parallel and asynchronous things happening all at the same time. Yeah, you can obviously use async IO. I just think that async IO is like just super awkward when I try to use it to make complex apps, and I end up spending a lot of time on async versus like TypeScript. I just find the experience much better. I could be a noob, but that's my take. I've worked enough with both that I feel like I'm not entirely wrong. Okay, so what am I using for development? This is like the next thing. I use Cursor. If you do one thing or learn one thing, it's just like use Cursor. It's so freaking good. Like, it just automatically completes code for you. I could be like, turn this into a poem. It'll just like do whatever I want in any language, whenever I want. It's so freaking good. I highly recommend, in my coding sanctuary, what tools do I see? And the other thing that I use a lot is Claude. And I love Claude. I think I think OpenAI's models are unusable. I don't know about anybody else. But if I'm like, I don't know. I use this all the time. And you can use Claude in here. You can see when I press Command K, which is the cursor and like edit, I can actually choose different models. But I love Opus. I think there's a reason why Truth Terminal uses Opus. There's a reason why we all use this. It's got a long context. You could throw like 10 files at it and you could do stuff. Now I want to show you guys something cool. I'm going to go to CD packages core, which is just like our core Eliza brain stuff. And I'm going to type in code to prompt, which is a tool that I have, source. And if I make a new file, you will see that I have a tool called code to prompt, which gives me a source tree of all of the files. Look at that. And then it gives me all the source code for the entire thing. And sometimes that will actually fit in the context of Claude, in this case. And it'll be like, can you write detailed explanation of how evaluators work? And I can just do crazy stuff like that, or I could ask it to like create a new action. I mean, I shove in, I just use the crap out of this thing, and I actually have 2 Claude accounts because it rate limits me sometimes, especially when I'm like kind of just grinding out a boring project or something. I'm just like, all right, whatever. I'll hand it to Claude. It's my favorite junior engineer. So that's kind of my tooling. I highly, highly recommend using Claude and asking it questions, throwing code at it, asking it to interpret it for you, explain it for you. A lot of the stuff is also built into Cursor, and you could pretty much just get away entirely with building with Cursor, but it doesn't give you out of the box access to Opus. And I just like the experience here of having this conversation, and then I'm like, please give me back, like please write an example evaluator that extracts the current mood of the agent. I don't know, whatever, and it can actually go through and do that. It's pretty good. Cool. So there's a tool called Code to Prompt. That's what I'm using. You can see it here. There's actually a few code to prompts, but they all kind of work. So like just whatever, use something like that. I like this one. You can go through Code to Prompt. You see what I did. You just like can filter it. You can just get the the path you need, whatever you want, and this will create that file tree thing for you, and then you can just paste it in the Claude. And that's like a really fast, nice little like way to work, personally. Cool. And you can see it like created a mood evaluator, which yeah, that's definitely the right structure. This is pretty good. We might come back to this at the end. Maybe we'll use Claude to make our actual examples and stuff, because I don't want to type. Okay, cool, good deal. So we're actually going to like install a few things. We talked about Node. Node is a runtime, right, that allows you to execute arbitrary JavaScript, which means you can build apps on it. And it also has a thing called a package manager. And the idea of a package manager is that, well, people have already written lots and lots of code. And you might not know this, but like 99% of every app is already written by other people and we just import it. Like, I'm not kidding. If you actually look at the number of dependencies in code that we write versus what we're importing, it's wild. It's just absolutely wild, right? So for example, in this core, you can see that these are the these are the dependencies. These probably shouldn't all be dev dependencies. No, that looks right. These are the main dependencies. So you can see we have like Anthropic SDK, Google SDK, Google Vertex, Grok, OpenAI, second Anthropic SDK, because this is the native SDK. This is the AI SDK version of it. Vertex, Fast Embed, a bunch of stuff, right? We have all this stuff. And each of these, like LangChain even, is a whole other library of the same size as this one with a whole bunch of code that does a whole bunch of stuff. And we're just like, yeah, I'm just going to grab LangChain and I'm going to grab like 3 things out of this whole library. But it's like a whole thing, right? I can actually go, let me just go to this because it's kind of fun. And we can go to LangChain.js. And you can see that, well, it's a whole repo and go into LangChain core and there's a whole bunch of code. And I go to source. You can see like, oh my God, each of these folders is, so this repo is probably bigger than our repo. But we're importing it as a package to just use some functionality out of it. And this is how we build stuff at like hyperspeed, is that there's already all these packages. And the way that we get these packages is that they're stored on a place called npm, which stands for Node Package Manager, right? We are, we're using Node. That's our runtime. We need some packages and we need to manage them. So I can say like npm install LangChain, right? And that's how I would do that install. And it would actually just install all that code into my project. Just done. You're good. You got LangChain now. Then I go to LangChain, right? Or, well, what I'll do is actually go to npm. And so this is where all the packages are. And currently, there are 3.3 million packages in the world. Different bundles of JavaScript code that do different things that have been created over the last 10 or 15 years. So I'm going to type in like LangChain. Okay, doke. And we can see that we have the TypeScript bindings for LangChain. You can see we have a whole bunch of different stuff. All these are other packages that are related or not related. And then I can see, click on that, and I can see all of the like information about it, how to get started, blah, blah, blah. And I can see the code base right here. And that's just one package, right? This is like, look, like 5 people spent, months on this one package. And yet that's just one package out of all of these packages. And so this is the beauty of this ecosystem. And Python has the same thing. Just to give some props to Python. In fact, like all of them do now, like have a good package ecosystem. But I think Python also has a really beautiful one, which is called PyPI, the Python Package Index. And you could search the same thing. We could just search LangChain because there's actually a Python version of LangChain too. And you can see it's basically the exact same, right? It's over here and but this is the power of all of this. This is my spirituality. Um, Random developers who I have never met and will never meet just created some free code so that I could just npm install it effortlessly and have all of this power and capability, right? Npm install LangChain, and that's it. That's all I ever had to do. And now I have all their code done. And there's a whole other team maintaining that, making sure it's secure, just doing their thing, right? Thank you guys. Thank you, LangChain. Thank you, Rollup. Thank you, all these people. Thank you, Mocha. Great. So this thing is called npm. It is the Node Package Manager, and you can run it from the command line by typing in npm. And we actually use npm not just for downloading packages, but also for running our project and like linking all of those packages before we run it. You don't need npm. You can just type in node like whatever.js. And if you made a JS file called whatever.js, it would just work. That'd be fine. But npm is like, okay, I'm actually going to like set all this up, import all the packages. I'm going to run this special command. If I write like npm run start, you'll see that there is a start command here that does a bunch of junk. pnpm filter, just call the agent, blah, blah, blah. And that's kind of how this all works, right? npm run start runs a script. The script does something that starts up our whole Node.js instance, compiles all the code with TypeScript, and runs it. And so npm is cool, but it has this really annoying problem, which is that we're using something called a monorepo. That means that we have lots of packages inside the same repo. We can make separate repos for each of these. Like we could have a core repo, and that'd be like github.com/AI16Z, like Eliza core, or like plug in Coinbase. But it's kind of annoying, and it's really hard to like link up and work on. So we just use what's called a monorepo, and that means we put all of the packages are in this packages folder. Like literally all of them, right? We got things for Conflux, for Node, for Solana, for Starknet, for Farcast or Discord, right? And these are each separate packages that separate teams have made and can like totally work on independently of each other. And each of these packages actually goes onto npm. And if you type in at AI16Z, you will see we have packages for each of these. And thank you very much for Lord of You for setting all this up. You can see he's deployed all of these. And what's really cool is you can now just install Eliza into your project just like any of the other packages, just like that LangChain thing I showed you. So you don't even have to, you can stand on our shoulders too. We're standing on the shoulders of all these projects that came before that made this free code that we all get to use. And then our thing is also free code that you can use. And you can straight up install it into your game, into your like Next.js app, into your front end, into your back end. You can build apps with this. That's the point, right? And it's just part of this bigger ecosystem. Cool. So, yeah, that's npm, but it's got this really annoying problem. It downloads those packages that we want to install into each of these into every single node modules folder in every package. And so we end up with this project that's like 5 gigabytes and takes forever to download and install. And it's just really annoying. npm is also not really good at managing monorepos. It just doesn't, like they've added some stuff for workspaces, but historically it's been very buggy for workspaces. So some people made another thing called pnpm, which is the performance node package manager. Definitely taking a swipe at them. And it's got a few core differences. It's definitely more security focused, making sure that the packages and package resolution is more correct. It's a little stricter. But primarily what it does is it links packages in so that the packages are shared across all of, not just here, but across your like, kind of across your like pnpm global directory. And again, like I could be slightly wrong on this, but this is how I understand it. And that means that instead of like copying all of these packages into every single one of your projects, you just need to have one copy of it somewhere and it gets linked in. And that way it's much, much faster to install and to like switch packages and do those kinds of things when you're working in this monorepo where you're actually working with lots of packages simultaneously that mostly share a lot of the same dependencies. So you don't have to rebuild the dependencies for each one. You don't have to reinstall them for each one. It's just like a nicer experience. So That's why we use pnpm. It's basically just performant npm, literally what it says on the tin. And that's you'll see that in our documentation. We try to prevent you from using npm just because it can miss some of the package linking and monorepo stuff. Cool. Um, great. So let's get back to our curriculum here. How are we doing? We are 30 minutes in. That's not too bad. Okay, so we're going to talk about WSL. This is only if you use Windows, because the reality is that developing with Node.js and pretty much everything except for I think C++ game development and like Unity game development, pretty much everything else really just is easier to build on Linux, especially Node.js and Python, and especially Python. I mean, Python package dependency stuff is like the thing that sticks most people when they're starting, far more than writing the code. And so Microsoft realized this and realized that developers hated building on Windows for all this hot new Python stuff. And so they made this thing called Windows Subsystem for Linux, called WSL. Um, go. And then they made WSL and it was okay, but it wasn't that great. So they made WSL2. And probably what you want is WSL2. And you can see here, you want to make sure, I mean, I'm pretty sure at this point, if you have Windows 10 or 11, I don't even think you can get WSL1. But just so you know, this is kind of the thing you want, is WSL2. And what it does is it lets you run Ubuntu by default and probably other Linux subsystems on your Windows machine as though it is just a Linux machine. And it makes running development so much easier. And a big difference is that, you know, when I say like git status, I do like some git stuff, this is super easy for me on a Mac because it's basically the same experience as Linux. And I have this nice shell terminal thing. But on a Windows machine, you pretty much just have this like command line argument thing, you know, like a command line. And it doesn't really work the same way. And the commands don't work the same way. And it's very confusing and annoying. And it doesn't link things well. And so you're just better off almost using WSL. And like pretty much if you are using Windows and you get stuck or you're like, I can't install this, just go install Windows Subsystem for Linux. It'll take you like 30 minutes of waiting for it to download Ubuntu, two mouse clicks. It's not hard. And then it will just, everything magically will work better for you. And literally, I don't care if you're doing Eliza, you're doing some Python stuff, you're working in like Jupyter notebooks, you will just save yourself a lot of pain if you use WSL instead of trying to raw dog Windows. Cool? This is, you know, very widely accepted, I believe. So now we're actually going to get into some of the dirty of this. Like we're going to install some stuff. So we want to install Node.js, right? We'll just say install Node.js. Cool. How to install Node.js. And oh, one thing that's nice, you can see install it on WSL, right? But we're gonna see here. And there is a thing. Installing Node.js is kind of annoying because they update every version of Node.js quite regularly. And then you're like, how do I manage all of these versions? Which version do I have? How do I get the next version? It's very annoying. So somebody made this thing called NVM, which is Node Version Manager. And this is at github.com/nvm-sh/nvm. And Node Version Manager is going to let you install different versions of Node. Who would have thought? But it's also just a really easy way to install any version of Node. So I'm just going to go here, and it's a little bit wordy, blah, 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 table of contents, don't care, intro, don't care. I mean, this is kind of useful. I can see like some commands. What I really care about is this. And I know that maybe you aren't very familiar with terminal, and you really shouldn't take things and like run them off of in like a curl just randomly without knowing what it is. But this is a very popular and well-known thing, so I recommend this. So we go here, and I'm just going to curl nvm. Curl is a command line tool on Linux and Mac that allows you to call HTTP requests, including like download this file. What we're doing with curl here is we're downloading a file. You can see that is downloading this -o- install.sh, and then it's running the install.sh. This is called a pipe. It's piping this code, right, whatever's in this .sh file, into this bash command, right? And what that does is it just automatically and magically installs NVM. And once you have NVM, I can see NVM-v. I can see NVM use. Well, let's see. What are some of the it doesn't really. I guess I have to give it an argument for it to do something. So I could be like nvm use 23, and that's going to use node 23, which I think is the latest ish, right? I can also do. I think it's nvm update 23. But what you probably want to use. No, that's probably wrong. What you really want to use is like nvm install 23. That's what you're going to want, right? You're going to want to go install 23. And then once it's installed, it should by default use that one because it's installed, but you can then use the nvm use 23. And this is really nice if you're like having annoying frustrations where one project you have is like node 18, and the other one's node 22. You can like just, nvm use 22. Sure, switch. And then it'll go, and that's it. Now I'm on 22. And globally across this, like when I run stuff, it's now running in Node.js 22. I'm going to go back to 23. So nvm is how you install Node. You will need to use a command line, but you're going to have to use that to start a lot of stuff. So time to get used to it. You copy this, one of these, curl or wget, whichever one. They'll both work on most Linux. You paste that in, you run it. That means you have nvm. You might need to create a new terminal if it doesn't. If when you run nvm, it doesn't do anything. Once you've run nvm, you can say nvm use or nvm install whatever you want, 23. You can then nvm use 23, and then you're installed. You've installed Node.js on your computer. That's kind of the first step, right? Now, what's cool is you get npm for free with Node.js. It hasn't always done this, but as of like the past many years, npm ships with Node.js by default. So you have access to npm and npm install, like I want to add a package, whatever you want. But you don't get pnpm for free, right? We have to install pnpm. Cool. However, if you've already installed Node.js, well, never mind. I'm actually not going to say that. I think the easiest way is, again, to come here and get the curl, right? So POSIX systems. POSIX is like a compatibility layer. POSIX compatible would include Mac OS and Linux and Unix and other systems in that kind of world. Windows is not POSIX compatible, I believe, but WSL2 is because it's using Ubuntu. So this is probably what you want. But if you are using Windows, you can use PowerShell and you can call the invoke web request. I just really hate this this syntax coming from Linux world. So I'm going to go grab that and I'm just going to install pnpm, and it's going to install the latest. And after that's good, we'll have pnpm and we can do all of our stuff, right? So if we go to our Eliza repo, let me scroll down, see the features and use cases, great. But we just want to get started. Here's our starter. So you'll notice that we have this Eliza starter, which is just like, you don't have to worry about changing the code that's already there. You're not developing. You're trying to build your own agent. We actually do give you a starter kit, right? And you can just click on that. And this has some instructions for, if you want to get started, you need to copy the .m.example to .m. And then you need to install pnpmi and then pnpm start. You can also, this repo right here is ai16z/Eliza. This is more the advanced mode, but this allows you to, I'm being told that my screen's not showing the website. Oh, wow. Okay, interesting. I wonder if it's doing display capture. Strange. It works. People are saying they see it. Okay, whatever. Anyway, maybe this is, I can hack this. I can just go to the README here. I'm just right here in the README, and I have a Markdown plugin, so I can Markdown preview. Open preview. Yeah, I like that. Love her. This is what I'm looking at here. Is it frozen? It seems like it's not updating. I'm going to try and restart capture. I think now it's working. Okay, I think capture froze. I think it was working on Discord, but it wasn't working in OBS. Okay, cool. So anyway, we fixed that. It's kind of, I hope I didn't miss some other important stuff. But anyway, so we have the prerequisites here. Obviously, we're talking about using the starter. So we have this Eliza starter kit that you can use. And that, just like get started with that. Where did it go? Eliza starter. Um, whoops. You can use this repo right here. You just copy the .env example to .env and you install and you start. And that's like going to get you going. But if you want to do development on Eliza, the like core tech, you got to install from, you got to clone this like base repo. So I'll just show you the difference really quick. Hopefully my code switches over. Yes, great. So if I go to the Eliza starter, you'll see this is the starter repo right here. And you can just clone this. Doesn't have a lot in it. You can pretty much just clone this and hack it and go nuts. You don't have to worry about all the rest of the code. We just ship this so that you don't have to edit and fork the core code base. You can use this as your starter, and there will also be like a create Eliza app thing coming too. So it's just very, very easy. And then if you want to work on the core meat and potatoes code base, that's all here, right? This is your editing packages, you're adding plugins, you're doing some real development. And so there's kind of a difference between the people who are like editing the core, adding functionality, and people who just want to like work on their own agent. That's what this Eliza starter is for. Now, if you look in the package JSON, which is the manifest of all packages that are imported, you'll see that the Eliza starter imports all of this stuff off of npm. So these are all on npm, and then they get installed into here. So we're working on this code somewhere else, right? This is all getting cooked in our main repo, and you don't have to worry about that. That's all just npm installed. You don't have to look at it. It's not in the source folder. This is like really lightweight starter. If you just want to make an agent or make your own plugins and you don't want to like share that back or anything, you're not trying to add it to the repo, you can just like throw it in here. Cool? Hope that helps. Now, new pull request. Eliza intern added some quick start instructions. So if people make changes, they can submit pull requests, and then we can review those pull requests and we can actually merge the code in, and I can go and see what they changed. See, I can see like, okay, how to edit the character file, custom characters, add clients, all this important information. Very cool. And you can see they gave us a default character example for Eliza. And I don't, I see that it's just JSON and an MD change. No malicious code could possibly be here. So I'm just going to YOLO that, right? And I can confirm that. And that's how I merge code in. And now this Eliza starter has been updated. Cool. I'll get into a Git in a little bit. Sorry, that was a little bit of an aside, but I just thought it was fun. And you can see now, oh, that's a little problematic. Well, we'll have to fix that. Yeah, so this is the kind of the starter thing. Let's go back here to our main repo, and you can see that we have instructions for how to start the starter, how to start this repo, and like just load everything. This loads from the last tagged release, so that even if we broke main, this would still work for you because we know that this release definitely worked when we released it. You should definitely follow all of the instructions here, even after you've watched this. You can see you can like edit the environment variable file and copy it over to .env. You can start the script with this, or type pnpm run start, which will also start this, etc., etc. You can see this is like all the stuff for getting started, and we're going to go through this in a second. This is the repo. In the meantime, pnpm installed. I can type in pnpm, and it will just do some stuff. And so there's a few things that like you always do. If you clone a repo, you always like install, and that's going to install all of the packages that are in the package JSON. Package JSON is like all the code I want to import into my project lives here, right? So I can type npm install, and that's going to happen. And that's going to start cooking. But I want to go back a little bit, and I want to start, now that we've had all of our dependencies installed, we installed Node, and that came with npm. We then installed npm. I want to clone the Eliza repo from scratch. I want to show you guys a couple of examples. Somebody's asking, can we use the starter kit for tweeting? Yes, you can use the starter kit for tweeting for sure. It should be easier to use than cloning the whole repo, and it has everything in it. It's fully featured. It just is less customizable and less hackable because it's more like you're just working on your agent. So we're going to clone the Eliza repo. We're going to switch branches, pull some changes, just like some basic Git stuff. I'll just get you kind of walking up to speed on that. Oh yeah, what is Git? And we'll talk about GitHub a little bit because I've been using GitHub, and you're probably like, what the hell is that? Like, GitHub is scary. So I'm just going to walk you guys through this. Okay, so this guy named Linus Torvalds, he made a little thing called Linux. It was very popular. People started contributing to it. I'll just type in Linux wiki. It's probably fun. And it's got a little penguin. This guy named Linus Torvalds, he's a very interesting character. very passionate man. Let's just say that, and brilliant programmer. And he had this problem, which is that all of these developers are contributing to Linux, and they're all in their own like little worlds. And then he has to like take their code and integrate it into the main source code, into Linux, and make sure that none of it breaks anything else, and that he can track who changed stuff and go blame them if it's wrong, and make sure that this whole thing fits together, even though there's hundreds of people all over the world working on this, right? Huge, complicated problem. And he's like, and there's all of these people saying, okay, what we need is this complex version control. It needs to be like this IQ 5000 genius thing. And he's like, no. Y'all are idiots. And because of that, I'm going to make this tool called Git. Because you're all a Gits. I'm a Git. We're all Gits. And which is kind of just a euphemism for an idiot or something. And in over like the course of a weekend, he makes Git. And Git is a very simple tool to version control your code in a very simple way so that you all can collaborate, right? It's kind of famous for this, being this version control tool that allows lots of developers to work together. Many other people tried. There's, Plastic SCM. There's, a ton of these different like kinds of tools. But fundamentally, Git really won, and anybody could make a Git server. So then some people come along and they're like, well, Git's pretty cool. Devs are going to want this. We should just make a website that lets people use Git super simply and like point their remote to us, and we'll host their GitHubs for them or their Gits for them. And that website was GitHub. And so GitHub is not associated with Git. It is a separate thing. They took Git, the open source project, and they hosted it so that you could get it anywhere and you didn't have to run a Git server. And this was obviously a wildly popular idea, and people realized that they could use this for kind of manage all of their ops, and it just became the like the center of everything. And Jin saying Git is to GitHub as porn is to Pornhub. I think that's pretty good. We can do lots of cool stuff in Git now. We can write issues, which are like, hey, there's a bug, or hey, I've got this idea for a feature. And if you would like to, submit a bug that you have, please come here and write an issue. And even better, go search for your issue. Like, go search for open Twitter issues. Twitter cookies do not match the docs, right? Okay, and you're like, okay. And then you can be like, I have this issue as well. And people will often just say that as +1. That's very popular. If you see +1, that's what that means, right? And you can comment, you can complain, you can do all kinds of funky stuff here. You can also submit code back to the main repo. And what we call these are pull requests. We call that because you're saying, hey, I am requesting that you, the central developer, pull my code in and apply it onto the repo and make it part of the code base. So that's called a PR or a pull request. Sometimes they're also called MRs or merge requests. You can have a full wiki discussion. You could converse and write things. And wow, people are actually using this. I should probably check this out. So you can have long discussions about stuff and figure things out and go through detail. You can, this is my favorite, you can actually manage all of your projects and all of your project management right here in GitHub. And it's good. Look, it's got Kanban. This is called Kanban. It's got these like kind of, or like a Trello board style thing. You can be like, okay, cool. I want to put the newsfeed on the backlog. Got to have that. You can go to roadmap. You can actually like roadmap out. I'll show you a better roadmap. I think Mark is it's private, but we're not really hiding anything. You can see we've got some stuff in progress to do. We've got the, basically like making sure that everybody has enough. Marco's taken on maybe a little too much. We can just focus on the current iteration. What do we have to get done just for this week? And we can also do this roadmap. We can see like, okay, well, this is what we're getting done this week, and these are the issues we're getting done that week. I just love, and I can also see what is assigned to me. And actually, I've completed all my deliverables in this, so we're chilling. But I love this. It's a great way to manage projects, right? We can also, let's see, go back, and we can do things like set up actions. And an action is like, hey, every time I commit to the main branch, go deploy the latest version to the website, or to whatever my thing is. So yeah, GitHub is like, even if you don't know how to code, I think if you can just run Git and run GitHub and run npm, you can just do like everything. You can get your way around the ecosystem, right? So I think that's really, really important. And a lot of projects, especially in open source land, are obviously working this way. I want to show you guys something else, which is that GitHub has GitHub pages. And Jin has spent a lot of effort making sure that we have a really nice documentation site. And you can go, even though this is hosted on GitHub pages, right? GitHub.io. This is all of our docs, and it's kind of like our Gitbook-like thing, right? So thank you, Jen. This is truly beautiful. Look at this. And it's got all the information you could want. I highly recommend you go through here and read all this. Or if you're super lazy, you could go to like CD docs, code to prompts the docs, or let's say source. And then you could be like, okay, I'm going to go to Claude, and I'm just going to be like, on Claude, like, how do evaluators work? And then it will be like, blah, 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 right? So don't feel like you have to read the docs. You can have the AI read the docs for you, but just showing you some tricks. But everything is here. Guides to how to get set up, all the things we do, how to do fine tuning if you're into that. Like we actually provide, enable this stuff. It's all here, and if it's not all here, it should be. And please feel free to make pull requests. And like this is a big part of what we're sort of advancing right now, so users can get deeper into this. Okie doke. Let's go back to our stuff. So I think I got through like the difference between Git and GitHub. I think you understand. Now let's actually get something from GitHub, right? So we are on this Eliza repo, and you can see that there's a lot of buttons, and it's kind of scary. Oh my God. If you wanted to make your own and start working on it, and you weren't a contributor, you can go to fork. And then you can fork it, and you can put it on your own. You can create a fork of it on your own like personal repo. You'll see it's going to take a while. And then you can just start contributing, like pushing to that. And it's completely separate copy of the original. But what's cool is because it's forked, you can sync it from the upstream. It still has a relationship. So you can work on your favorite thing and then pull all of the changes as we work on them into this, right? So it's like a nice kind of way to say like, hey, we're cooking on our own thing, but it's still got this relationship. And what's really cool is you can go into insights and you can see like all of the forks. And I mean, this is like the craziest thing, right? Like network is one of my favorite features of GitHub. So, you're like, cool, now I clone this, I'm working on my fork. You don't have to make your own fork though. You can just clone the main repo also. But if you wanted to push changes to your own thing and keep them separate, you would want to make a fork. And you can see that there's all these developers. Oh, this is actually I want the Eliza repo. You can see there's all these developers working on their own thing. That was cool. But I also want to see, it's probably only going to show us the 100. But yeah, I'd love to see, like, this is kind of crazy for the Eliza repo because we have a lot of forks, about 600 forks. Cool, good deal. And you can see like, Shaw pushed this split client terminal. There's some other people working on, Lord of a Few is working on his Eternum fixes for his open source Starkware game. You can see somebody's like, check if the tweet's already responded. They probably were just fixing some Twitter stuff on their fork. And you can actually see all of these people are working independently on their own things. Like, look at this. All of these developers are doing their own code on their own thing, and they've taken our repo and they've run with it with a fork. And sometimes we'll be like, hey, that's really cool. Like, damn, you added Moonshot? Wait. You added Moonshot. I don't know if they did, right? But let's say they did. And I'm like, holy crap. They're like, this is fire. I can actually go to their repo and I can look at like the Moonshot branch, and I can see that they've done like 72 things here. And I can actually like, I can pull request this back into our thing. I can be like new pull request. This is wild, right? And I can just pull their code back into the upstream, right? Look at this. And now I have like they're doing all this crazy stuff. And I can just be like, cool, make a PR and pull that code up, review it. And they don't even have to make a pull request themselves because they're just coding in the open like we are. And now we have this ecosystem. We can all share code and we can all like take our favorite features and implement them and stuff, right? Yeah, I love this. I absolutely love this part of it. And you can also see from these commits, this is like the commit message. They're working on like Coinbase, tip user wallets, wallet send. Oh, this is pretty good. Very good stuff. WebSockets for ticker search. Oh my God, they're on fire. So yeah, this is what's happening in our ecosystem and how we kind of see it. And this is why GitHub is so freaking beautiful, right? You can even see like ICO is wait. ICO is open source. Holy shit, ICO is open source. Um, yeah, so anyway, that's kind of the vibe, right? I hope that makes sense. Now we're actually going to just clone our repo. So yeah, you could fork it, you could edit the fork, but you could also just like, I just want to do some stuff. I just want to edit this thing. I don't want to worry about it. So I can go here, and if I click code, you'll see that it gives me some options. I can do GitHub CLI. I think I have that installed. Git repo clone. And I have to give it a name because I already have an Eliza folder. So I'll just, yeah. So I have GitHub CLI installed, so that works. That's fine. I can also, if I have Git, which is default, installed on a lot of Linux machines and stuff, I can type in git clone and then just type in that URL. I have to do the same thing. I have to do Eliza too. Git clone that URL and then add some name for where it clones to. That seems fine. I could do SSH if you're into that. And there's also, if you are really scared of the command line, you're just like, I don't want to deal with it. There is a thing called GitHub Desktop, and it's just like a nice, app. It looks like an app. It's not scary. I don't want to download it. I'd like to see it. It looks like this. It's really boring. You can like see all your files and stuff. Just get GitHub Desktop if you don't want to deal with the CLI. And then if you do that, you don't have to clone. You can just download it with the CLI from that button. And that would look like this. You just open it in GitHub Desktop. You can, you can just download the zip file and start editing it. I highly recommend you don't do that, this download. It's just going to cause you so many problems. It has no connection to source control. If you accidentally mess up your code, you can always fix it with source control with Git. Like you can always go back, you can always revert. But you cannot, if you download the zip and you edit it, it's just like its own, it's like editing files on your local. If you like save over and you close it, there's no getting it back. It's gone. So I don't recommend downloading with zip. I recommend opening with GitHub Desktop or cloning it. So just real quick, yeah, sorry if I'm going real fast. I'm trying to fit this into a pretty short period of time. So git clone Eliza 2, right? Oh, we already did that. So git clone Eliza 2 new. That's usually how I clone a repo. And you can see it just downloads the objects. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Okey-doke. So that'll take a while. Once you've cloned it, it makes a folder that you have to go into. So I remember I called it Eliza-2 new. So I'll cd, which is change directory on a POSIX compatible machine, like a Mac or Linux, into Eliza-2 new. And then I'm going to type in code space dot, or if you have cursor space dot. But I actually made it so the code space dot opens cursor. And that opens up a new folder with Eliza-2 new. And I'm in this fresh repo, right? So if I go ls, I see some files. That's just like what's in here. pnpm install. That's the first thing I do. And you can also type pnpm I. That's going to install all of the packages that are inside of the package.json for me, right? And it's going to go through and it's going to find all of the packages. There's 3,600 installed in this project. There's only like maybe a few hundred, but then those have a few hundred, those have a few hundred, and it scales up. It gets pretty big. You can see then it's going to install. It's going to run all these install scripts. And then we're just going to have everything fresh, ready to go. Cool. This is the most boring part of Node.js development. Waiting for the install. Now, obviously, I have a version of this already running. I could just be like, oh, and I pulled one out of the oven. That might not be the worst thing. If I go back to here, I have the exact same thing here. Like, same code, blah, blah, blah. So I won't pull it out of the oven. I'll go back to the installed one. Don't worry. I've got a fresh install. I went pnpm install after cloning, and now I've cloned the repo. I've installed the dependencies, and now I'm ready to dance. Now, Jin is bringing up something really important, which is if you just install like this, you're installing the main branch. And I am not guaranteeing that the main branch works because we move real fast. And a lot of things could happen that could mess up the main branch that might cause you some issues. So what we did was we made a much simpler way for you to get this. If you look at these releases, we regularly release new releases, and each one has like a change log. We just started this, so this is pretty new, but this will have like what changed in it, what's new, and it's definitely stable. Like we definitely tested that and know that that works. So if you want to get um, if you want to actually get the working code, not the latest, you're not committing to mass like the main branch, but you just want the thing that works that you can cook. You actually probably want to do this command. What this is going to do is it's going to get the latest tag, which is version 0.1.4 alpha 3, right? So we are now on this branch. And when I change branches, oftentimes I find that I have a weird problem. Um, that problem is that we've already built some old stuff and it kind of creates some type issues. We're going to try and clean this up. But in the meantime, what we do is we run pnpm clean. And that's just going to run this clean script, which is going to delete all the junk. Even though I installed it, it's like delete all the installed stuff, and then we'll install again. You don't have to clean unless you like changed your branch. And remember, I was on main, and then I switched over to a release, and I just want to make sure that I change my branch when I do that. And I'm pretty sure if I type in clean, you'll see that this project iterates fast. Sometimes you need to clean the project if you're coming back to it, right? That's very important. So, whoops. I'll then run pnpm install again. That should install everything we need. And then I'm going to run pnpm run dev. Now, we have pnpm run start, and that will run the agent, just the agent running, but it assumes that you've already built. And so this is probably something we need to make sure. And then we also have dev. And so very commonly, if you clone some other repo, like, I don't know, Next.js starter, right? And I just have some like Next.js Twitter starter thing, right? Next.js is a front end. It's actually a full stack application development with Node.js, TypeScript, and React. And this would be like if you want to log in on the front end with like a Twitter API thing, whatever. This is some project. But if I go into here and I click on package.json, you'll see it has a dev and a start and a build. And these are scripts. So pretty much every NPM Node.js project you can kind of just go into even without looking at it. And lots of people do this, and it's terrible. They just type in like, I don't know, pnpm run dev, right? I don't know. I just downloaded this. I didn't even look. Just dev. That's probably right. And we'll see if it works. Now, it's having some build errors. And the reason it's having build errors is because it's not finding some of the types. This is something we have to fix. We have this in the installation instructions, but we actually have to build. This is the thing we're missing. We're missing the build. We have to build all of the packages. And then all of these type errors, if you see these, you should know it's because you didn't run build, right? So then we'll run build. Do. It's very slow. Or, it's not parallelized. We could probably fix some of this, make it faster. But right now, it's a little slow. Cool. All right, great. And now we should be able to run start or dev. Start will start the agent. Dev will try to create everything into like a watch mode. Somebody's saying maybe turbo repo it. If you want to add turbo repo, please make a pull request. I think it badly needs developer experience around that thing I just showed you. That would make it so that it pretty much is just like automatically watches and updates the dependencies and stuff as we need it. We just haven't put that in yet. So here I am. Hey, what's up? And you can see, well, it's throwing an error because I don't have an API key for the bearer auth. And this is for OpenAI. It seems to be defaulting to OpenAI. Not sure why, but I'll have to get an API key to call this. That's okay. This seems like everything worked. So that's from here. If I run npm run start and I get that, it registers all the services. You can see it's registering all the actions, success creating the character. We're using the Eliza character and runtime there. And then you can see you. And I can say, hey, what's up? And if I have an API key, it'll actually run the completion. So we'll get to that in a second. Oh, right, because we're on an old branch, and we actually on the release branch, not the main branch that we're on now. So that's why it's defaulting to OpenAI, but now it just defaults to local models, and it'll actually download the local models. So, but we won't worry about that. Okay, let's go back to our to-dos. Apparently, I'll just write them here. Actually, I have to open this from here. Cool. We're working in a fresh repo, even though it's the same as the one behind. So we pulled all the latest changes, and now we start to get in. We've like I've gotten you through the 101 of like literally any in Node.js project, any JavaScript, TypeScript, npm, Node.js, whatever. That all is going to be the same. Everything you just saw is going to be the same for all of them. You need Git, you need GitHub, you need npm, you might need pnpm, you need Node.js installed, you need Node version manager so that you can manage the versions of Node.js, just the easier way to install. You need all that stuff. But that could be for literally any app you make. This is now, I think, where we get into the stuff that is unique about our project. Generally, these concepts there's some version of these concepts in every agent framework. They're just slightly different. And I'll talk about like kind of the main branch version of those concepts and then sort of our take on those. And maybe I'll try not to I don't want to be too windy about it, but like why would we choose those things? Why wouldn't we just do the stuff that's in all the papers? So I'm going to just take I would like to, let's see. No, we'll go through the character and then we will run the character and we'll add the character Discord. I'm just going to take a 1 minute break, use the bathroom, and we will get back to it. Also, if you guys want to just fill up the chat with questions that you have, I'll answer a few questions before I jump into the character creation and talk about that for a little bit. Then we'll do a QA if we want to. Maybe we'll cut the QA till the end on time and we'll just get into the real meat and potatoes. Cool. So I'll be right back in 45 seconds or so. I'm also going to take 2 bites of this amazing Indian food that's in front of me. Okay. I realized that I'd like to just talk about, well, let's see. Um, I'm just going to, if anybody has any questions, we'll just answer a few of those before we jump into it. Again, um, let's see. Question. Risk involved in update from repo could destroy the project if you don't know what you're doing? Yeah, totally. I think I need to cover something really important, which is every hour you spend struggling to do something without knowing how to do it is like you could basically spend the hour learning how to do it and then do it in 5 minutes, and you would actually have learned how to do it forever, and you would have maximized your time. And so the way that I learned to program is that I literally just watched thousands of hours of YouTube videos. I learned to program before the invention of AI, and I learned to program basically at the dawn of YouTube. And it was really, really hard to find YouTube videos at first, but then there was kind of an everything all at once. And like, there is YouTube videos for everything. So if you want to know Git, this is the superpower. You can literally matrix it into your brain. It is so, so important that you learn how to teach yourself stuff. That you can learn anything. You can literally learn anything, but you can definitely learn it on YouTube with tutorials. Like, I love Mosh. Mosh is great. Programming with Mosh. Here's a 1 hour GitHub
And this one,
tutorial on how to use Git, how to, clone repos, change branches, make your own stuff, submit pull requests, all that stuff is in here, right? And you can pretty much just spend like 2 hours and then you will just know it. The other thing is like, if you don't know a Git command, I'll just go to OpenAI for a second. I do use it for this stuff. And I'm just like, I need to check out, I need to stash my current changes, which is like hide them for a second. I'll just even say, like, let's say you didn't even know what stash was. Put away my current changes, change to the branch, test branch, and apply those changes onto that branch, right? Can you give me a git command for that? And like, just learn these tools, use this stuff. Literally, it's going to be like, yeah, bam, git stash, okay, git checkout, and then git stash apply. And I can just copy that and, paste that right in and it's going to work. So obviously YouTube is, OpenAI, ChatGPT, and Claude are super, super useful for this and for asking questions and all that. But you really do need to go to YouTube and like just watch other devs build. Watch how they build, like learn all of this stuff. You need to learn Git. It's just so freaking important. I mean, like I think everyone in high school should learn Git because it's the difference between not being able to do something and being able to do something. You can also say like TypeScript tutorial, right? And maybe we'll do Node.js TypeScript tutorial since that's very commonly used together. You can see like TypeScript with Node.js. And this guy made an entire tutorial series on how to do this. It's got nice music, 42,000 views, it's chilling,
let's
right?
see how we can set up
Great.
a Node.js
Very boring.
project.
But this is how you learn. And I'd recommend watch them fast, watch them slow. But for any of the topics that we just covered, this is how I learned how to program. I think this is the best way to learn how to program. I don't think that going to school for this is as good because this stuff changes so fast. I look at like the curriculums and they're still forcing kids to spend a year in Java. And like that's just irrelevant, like come on. Unless you want to have a soul-sucking job, you're never ever going to see Java. You're pretty much going to use Python and JavaScript and stuff like that, or Rust or something. So, you want like a Solana contract tutorial. Yeah, you want to write some Solana contract codes. Sure, right here. Look at this. Look at this guy. Josh, he's fucking shit right here. Fuck yeah, Josh. So you get into Rust, you get into all that stuff, like literally anything you want. Just use YouTube. If you have any questions or you're unsure and you're like, I'm going to kill my code base, go learn for a bit. Just take a break, go learn something, and you'll come back and you'll be like, I know Kung Fu. I swear to God. Really, anybody can learn this stuff. It's literally just information you have to get from in the computer into your brain, and then it's done. It's not about IQ or capability or where you came from. You could literally be a nobody, and you could be the best, most fucking cracked programmer because you just like spent a lot of time on this. And it's kind of like a video game. I really, really, really want to see you guys like using this stuff and learning. Um, Jin's asking JavaScript and Python are high level. Wouldn't C or ASM or like assembly or something be complemented? Yeah, absolutely. Most like machine learning stuff is actually Python running C++ code, which is written like CUDA is a variant on C for it's a compute library for uploading things to GPU. I mean, I don't know if it's a variant on C, but it's basically at least when I've used it, I'm importing it into C++, and then I'm writing like CUDA files, and it's code that runs on a GPU, right? I'm pretty sure it's a variant of C++. And um, like you're going to need to learn some low level primitives if you want to write fast performant like machine learning code. You might want to write CUDA, and that's like a whole thing. But you could also just be like, I don't know, CUDA tutorial, right? Assembly is like what is the raw instructions that you can use to like do very, very performant stuff. And if you look at a game like Doom, where every single clock cycle counted, Carmack would write assembly for like the really, really tight loops that needed to be super, super efficient, and then write the rest in C or C++, right? So he's like kind of mixing those sort of things together. And what you can compile C down to assembly because it's just like raw telling the processor to do this, do that, jump back and forth, whatever. But generally, you don't see a lot of assembly in what we do. If you're doing like reverse engineering or hacking, I mean, like kind of white hat hacking, or like getting at the heart of like how a virus works or something, you're going to use a lot of assembly, or like low level embedded hardware, a lot of assembly. Um, so I think it's a really good thing to learn because it shows you what's actually going on. And even like C++ and C are like pretty abstract. Like they're doing a lot for you, and you start to really see the internals of that when you work in assembly. So anyway, I don't mean to get. I'm just kind of riffing, but getting to ask some questions. Um, so yeah, I love YouTube. I think you can learn anything here. I don't think you should worry too much about learning everything, but if the more you learn about every little thing, the more it's going to come back to give you some synthesis into other stuff. Let's get back to business. I don't want to stay too long on Git and show you too much Git because you can literally go learn that on YouTube. Okay, cool. Did the kind of QA. Um, Somebody's asking, I don't see the terminal in the down section on cursor. Um, mm, Probably it looks like that. I don't know. No. Usually it's like there's some things here. Try pressing that terminal button to see it. If you don't see it, I think Yikes is saying it's Control T. Good one. What are the steps for npm and pnpm clone again? Well, you'd say like git clone https github.com/ai16z/Eliza. Eliza's test. That's the clone, right? You run that. That clones it to the Eliza test folder. But I'm going to go back into here. cd eliza-2 new. And then I can make pnpm install and pnpm run build. Remember, that's just how that part works. This is also in our documentation, so you can just kind of go step by step. Cool. Any other questions before I get back into it? Let's see. I don't know. Whatever. Okay, let's get back into it. Okay, so creating a character. This is where we get into like our stuff, our actual semi-unique stuff. The character files that we use could be imported into any other compatible agent framework if there was one. It's not really anything specific to us, and the character file spec is something we work on sort of separately, but I'll show you what that kind of looks like. So we have a couple of default characters. We have Tate and we have Trump. And then we have like if you just run it, the default character is in this core package, and this is Eliza. And so we can just we'll just look at this and talk about it for a second. All good. I'm just checking the chat. Okay, so I'm going to show you the two different versions of this that we have. The first version is that we have this default character file, and it has remember when I talked about types at the beginning and TypeScript? This character is the type. The type is character. And if I command click on it, I go to the type definition. And that type definition shows me all of the things that could be in the character. Now, if there is a question mark, that's called optional, right? It's an optional value, or I guess, yeah, I don't know. It's an optional. And I guess it's an optional property. If it's a part of a type, it would be a property, I think is the correct word. So it doesn't have to have an ID, but it could. A character has to have a name, no question. It could have a username, and if it doesn't, we'll just default back to the name. It could have a system prompt, which you might know from like other, like OpenAI. You can edit a system prompt, but it doesn't have to have a system prompt in the character. It does have to have a model provider. On the model providers, again, a type, you can have OpenAI, Anthropic, Grok, the other Grok, Llama Cloud, Llama Local. This is like actually the new default in the latest. You can have Google, just regular Google like Gemini. You can have Vertex or call Claude from Vertex. Red Pill, which is like a wrapped, you basically pay tokens to call OpenAI and other models. It's kind of cool. You can have Open Router, which is a very popular, I think that's what Truth Terminal uses, is to like contact Claude through Open Router. You can contact any model that's there as long as you pay for it. Olama, which is a way to run local models outside of this repo and then connect to them through like a little server connection. So you can just run any model you want. And then Hurist, which is by the way, this is a free option. They're giving us free inference if you use this. And they're going out and calling models in a decentralized way. So it's a decentralized inference option. I think it just calls Llama, and it is free to use if you want something. So we are also working on things like working with Infura. I would love to work with BitTensor. We have a whole bunch of other ones we haven't even brought in yet or merged. So we'll be adding like pretty much every model provider you can imagine, and it's pretty easy to add one. You just go and say add one like Infura, and Infura is cool because they will or Prime Intellect would be a good one. Infura like lets you run their software on your computer and then just start serving inference to other people for tokens. Um, but yeah, there's a lot. Whatever. The model provider is basically like, what are you using to do completions? I do not recommend OpenAI. Their stuff sucks. I wish it didn't suck, but like their models are so bad for characters that I find them basically so cringe they're unusable. I really recommend like Grok's great, Anthropic, which is Claude, is great. Llama Cloud with which we use Together.ai for is really good. Llama's great. All these options are good and basically let you run, whatever. I think Gemini kind of sucks. It's fine. It's just like not very. It refuses a lot of more, let's say, creative requests. Um, but Claude on Vertex is great because then you can get like a special deal and you'll get rate limited. Blah blah blah. Okay, good deal. I don't want to get too stuck on that. Yeah, the one thing about Gemini that's cool is it has a 2 million token context window, which is 10 times the size of Claude, which is twice the size of OpenAI. So you can put in like in the entire constitution and and a bunch of other documents and get back like a full write up if you wanted to. Okay, doke. I just want to see um, character file is bad. I think that's the problem. I could be wrong. Anyway, whatever. Sorry, checking in the chat. Okay, so model provider is very important. You can put your settings here. Some settings are loaded just from like the voice, but most of the settings end up in secrets. Like if you want to have your Infura API key and all that. In the default character here, this is going to default to using your environment variables, like whatever's in your environment. But if you wanted to make multiple characters or make them out of JSON, you might want each one to have different Twitter credentials and Discord credentials. And so using the environment variables is not really a very good way to manage each character having their own secrets. We have a new thing coming in, which will let you put all your secrets in your environment and namespace them by the character name. So you'll be like, like Eliza dots OpenAI API key, right? Equals. Or whatever. And this would be like in your secrets. But we don't have that yet. So generally the way we do with these set is we put our secrets here, right? For API keys and blah, 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 blah. Then we have our system. So this is like the system prompt you might see in OpenAI. I think I'll just go here real quick so you can kind of see that. If I go to settings, that used to be not here, but now I think it is. I can do custom instructions, and these custom instructions are essentially the system prompt, right? This is what's used in place in this case. Or I think in Claude it just has a system prompt, and you can edit that system prompt. I never do. I never do. I really don't even know how to. Probably something down here. Settings. What personal preferences? So this is like the system prompt. I typically write code in TypeScript, blah, blah, blah. I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Actually, I don't know where they put it. But it does work in the API. So we have a system input. Now we have this bio stuff. And the way the bio works is you could just have one bio, and it will just it will use that as your bio. But you might also want to have, like, a lot of what we do is we randomize everything and we create a whole lot of entropy. Because I noticed that if we just put everything into the system prompt, which is what a lot of agents do, it just doesn't have enough uniqueness. It ends up repeating itself a lot. And preventing the agent from repeating itself is like definitely one of our key things that we're trying to do, is to make it creative and interesting without forcing us to jack up the parameters on the model to keep it creative. Like we can have relatively low parameters on the model, like temperature, which is kind of like how quote unquote creative it can be. It's not actually what, not exactly what it is. It's more like of the random of the options available for the model to, give you a sentence. Like what does it actually pick? And higher temperature increases some randomness in the system. Um, so it can also then create a lot of the hallucination that you see. So we try to get low hallucination by randomizing a lot of stuff, and then having a lower temperature. And you don't have to do this. Other agents do this differently. It's just the way that we've approached this. So I have this bio. I have all of these different bios. And what we do is for any time that the agent responds, we prepare this kind of like context, right? Like you could imagine here, I'll just like imagine I'm in ChatGPT and I'm like, okay, bio, right? And that's my bio. And every time I talk, I'm like, write a message like this person, right? That's cool. Um, but what we do is we say, okay, well, we're actually going to grab 5 of these, just 5 of them, and we're going to randomize the order of them. And then we're going to put them together into a single bio. And it's always going to be different every single time that we do a ChatGPT call, right? So yeah, we're not just going to do this. We're going to say like, okay, I want that one. I want that one. I want that one. Those do 3, right? And that will say like, okay, that's like one sentence now, right? And so it's sort of like this is kind of what's happening in the back end. We do a lot more, but just imagine that we're like randomly composing this. Then like now write a message like this person, right? And hopefully it will be dramatically different because I've sort of given different pieces of the bio worded in a different way. And this creates a lot of entropy. Entropy is this idea of in information theory of like, well, how much randomness is, I mean, it's kind of a joke of like, entropy is itself not really like exactly easy for people to explain, especially me. But in the way that we talk about it, what we're talking about is like creating enough randomness in the system that it doesn't lock down into a single local minima and start just giving us the same answers in the same part of the model. We want it to pull things from different parts of the model and be more creative. And so we randomize the order of these things. Um, and that kind of adds to that. So you could just have one bio, but if you add a bunch of bios, it's going to be kind of playing into our strength of giving people a lot more creative agent. Now, it's the same thing with lore. Bio and lore kind of work the same way. In the way that this was created, and the way it will work in the future, is that it pulls the relevant lore. But right now, I think it just pulls some random lore to kind of give it some flavor, right? So right now it's just pulling like 5 of these in, and you're like, hey, what are you doing? And she might be like, oh, I'm just like working on this project. I just encoded the entire works of Shakespeare into a single CSS file, but now I'm trying to get it to host on an NFT. Okay, cool. And that's like this is just like some stuff that's interesting about this character that they can reference, and we will make this a searchable thing so that you can search the lore, or it'll pull the relevant lore for whatever the current conversation is, but it's just not that set that way right now. However, we have another field, which we don't have any knowledge in here for right now for Eliza, but you can add, and knowledge is searchable. And this uses what's called RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation, which is a very fancy PhD term for we just go search stuff, and then we take the search stuff and we put it into the model before we run this. So imagine I like go to like news, right? And then I'm just like, oh, I'll go grab the top 10 from Hacker News. I did the search and I'm like, okay, now write me a message that includes some info from this, right? So that would be like retrieval. I just did it for you manually. Right? I got like I retrieved the top 10. Now, a more advanced version of retrieval would be like, okay, I'm actually going to go here and then I'm going to press the search. I'm going to type in Eliza. up. And now I have these links, right? And now I've searched for Eliza. I'm only going to pull the things that are Eliza. Yes. Cool. And then I'll put those and I'll be like, okay, now write the same, now write a message referencing this, right? And so that is RAG. You can do it with what's called vector embeddings, which we do. And that's a really nice way to search something without exact searching the keywords. But there's also like a lot of different ways to search, different algorithms. Some of them are much more efficient and cost less or require less compute. And all of those are valid, right, as retrieval from a database or from a data source. So knowledge, I'd say like I don't know, let's say I've got like Mark Andreessen Substack, right? This would be a good example of knowledge. And the true origin of Netscape. No. I don't want a video. I want a written piece. Yes, why AI will save the world. Perfect. So I'm just going to take this like piece, and we have scripts to like hack up things and turn them into knowledge. But I'm just going to do this by hand, and I'll just create this like knowledge item, right? And all of this could be like one super long document, but it's fine for now. So that's like a knowledge item, and then I want another one. I want like on the candlemaker's petition. No, that's cool, but it's not really interesting. I want for polarization. Okay, cool. So that's like yeah. Okay, cool. We'll just grab that, and now I've got kind of two knowledge pieces, and we have some extraction tools so you can automatically make this, and I'll make those easier. It's called folder to knowledge. You just dump a bunch of PDFs and stuff, and it'll extract. So imagine that you like extracted a bunch of stuff and you created this array. I'll pull this up. It's fine. Character file. We really got to fix this stuff, but we do have some stuff here like tweets to character. You can download your Twitter archive and create a character file of yourself just from your Twitter archive. We have folder to knowledge, and this will like you just take a folder of PDFs and junk, and this will make a knowledge document that you can then paste into knowledge. And we're going to work on improving the RAG pipeline so that you could actually just have a folder of stuff in your agent folder, and it will automatically ingest. That's definitely coming because I think this is like one of the most powerful features. The other thing that we're working on is you'll be able to ingest knowledge directly from like Discord. And if I'm like, here's a PDF, can you please add this to your knowledge? And that should be something it could definitely do, right? Oh, cool. And then it hacks it all up, makes it all searchable, adds embeddings, and then every time you search from there on, it's like part of the memory store, right? So this is the stuff your agent knows and recalls by search, and it recalls the most relevant one. And this was recently fixed, so this is definitely got to pull main to get this. We also have message examples, and so we want to show what the actual language of our agent is. How do they speak? And so we can create these. We can use these user1 macro, and I think we can also replace this with agent name macro, like this. And these get replaced with users. So you can have user 1, user 2, user 3, and you can have these like multi-agent, multi-turn conversations, and you see how would the agent respond in this conversation. You don't just have to have text. You can also associate an action, which might be like, I don't know, continue. In this case, it's not continue. It could just be none. I think that might be a very valid action. Or you can just ignore the action entirely and just say it's just text. But generally, we have a content field, which has text and maybe has an action or a target or some other things. So user 1, conversation with, we'll just say Eliza in this case. User 1 conversing with Eliza, and this will then get kind of compacted down into, and it'll randomly pull some of these examples, and it'll mix them in with the examples of action usage. So we have other, I'll get into this in a second. We have examples of actions being used, and we mix those in with like examples of the agent's conversation, and basically say, this is how the agent speaks. You can see like in this case, user 1 continued, and then spoke, and then Eliza responds, and then continues, and then speaks again. So the continue action is telling the agent, hey, follow up on your own message and send us another message. Don't worry about that. We'll get into that. But the point is that these are all examples of conversations, and some of them are short, some of them are long. And this just says like how should the agent speak? And if you want it to be super witty and like kind of snarky, you would definitely want to reflect that in these conversations. If you want it to be soft and sweet, you might reflect that. You might reflect a little bit of each because you're randomly pulling these conversations all the time. And this is what it's using to say, this is how this agent speaks, right? Cool. So then these are messages and kind of examples of message conversation. We also have post examples. And these are a lot simpler because the post is pretty much just like, what does the agent generate? The message examples are used in interactions, chats, those kinds of contexts. The posts are used for like posting on Twitter. So, AI is cool, but it needs to meet a human need beyond shiny toy bullshit. Yeah, that's pretty good. I like that. And then the agent starts to like sort of adopt this style. And this is how we did, like our first version of Spartan was pretty much just we scraped all of his post examples and cleaned up like the links, and that was it. Like that was a lot of how we got there. And you can have thousands. You could have thousands of posts. You could literally have thousands. And so I want to show you something. We made a tool to make this easier on our repo. Actually, the creator of Beth AI, his name is Lucid, created this tool. Twitter Scraper Fine Tune. Then we created it together. I think I created a little bit. He kind of created a little bit. But the idea is that this will actually run a scraper. You put your information in. You don't need an API. You just use your own, like use some username and password that maybe is your alt account or something. And you call the username that you want, like pmarka, and it will scrape all of the tweets, right? Or at least several thousand of them until you get rate limited. And this is what we used for getting the tweets. And I highly recommend you use this as well. Very, very useful. Cool. So this will scrape. You'll get all the tweets. You'll paste all of them into this post examples. And these post examples will be referenced every time it generates a new tweet. Okay. Then we have adjectives. And so these are used, we can use these when we want to in different post templates or different templates generally. If you're like, write a intelligent article about metaphysics. I don't know, this is kind of a character that's into that stuff, right? Or like, write a schizo-autist article about Penrose-Hammurabi orchestrated object reduction. you know and that's how it gets these like really like Mad Lib, if you want, for adding something about post generation that gets it out of the post examples sort of local minima, is you can give it a bunch of examples, but then also give it different adjectives and topics to talk about, and it'll kind of cycle through those. And then if you have hundreds of those, you won't get a lot of repeats. So really think like you want a lot of adjectives, you want a lot of topics. We had people here, but we're not using this right now, so we'll probably get rid of that. It's just like a vestige. Now, here's another really important part, is style. And the way that style works is that style is the last sort of part of your context. Like imagine I'm in ChatGPT, I'm here, and then I have all this like blah, blah, blah. I have this kind of boring shit here. Oh my God. Do. I got all this context, and then I'm like, okay, here is the current conversation, right? The current conversation comes in, and it's like, Shaw, hey, what's up? Eliza. And then I'm chilling. Shaw, okay, cool. Eliza, ignore, right? I don't know, whatever. Something like that. I don't know. Well, usually what I will have is then I'll have some instructions like, respond as Eliza to the current conversation. Whatever. I'll actually just get rid of the ignore. And the styles would then be like directions, right? And so we'd have here like style, like all styles. And then we'd have like, I don't know, we're chatting. So this would be like chat styles. And we'll put some random directions here for all styles and some for chat styles. If you have less than 10 directions, it will randomize the order of those directions. Again, this helps with entropy. If you have more than 10 directions, it will grab the top 10 from each of these fields and then randomize them. Or not top 10, but random 10, and then randomize the order. So if you want things to be very consistent, You should have 10 directions in each of these. If you want it to be more creative, you should have lots of directions. And then sometimes it'll go full, I don't know, like wall of text. And sometimes it'll be very short. And that'll be sort of dependent on the directions that are in there at the time, plus all the other context, plus the current conversation and example messages. All this stuff gets combined together dynamically, randomized, injected whenever it generates a new response. So what's important is all directions are always included. Chat directions are included in like the Discord and Telegram and Twitter interactions, but not the Twitter posts. And then posts are really for like any forum where it's just posting something out of nothing, right? So, act like a smart kid, but really edgy academic kid, or it's just trying to be funny. I don't know, whatever you want. But I recommend that the style directions actually also be written in the voice of the character, because the model is not that smart. It's just kind of going to look over at the general thing. And if you have lots of walls of text, it's going to give you back lots of walls of text. I really recommend the AI agents tend to be way too wordy and they say way too much. I would really recommend things like have very short responses and then all of these be really short, Um, like we can just get rid of anything that's too long. And that's going to help a lot with shortening the responses as well. Because it's kind of just looking at the context and saying, well, these people are wordy as hell, so I should also respond wordy as hell. And if everything is very short and sweet and to the point, and you're telling it to be short and sweet to the point, it will it will reflect that. So this is like the character template, right? I'd like to I'd like to make I don't know, I'd like to make a character real quick, right? So how would we make a character? Well, we will allow you in the future to, there's three ways to do this. You could clone this repo. You could go to packages, core, source, default character, and you could just edit this. And in the early days, that's kind of what everyone was doing who didn't really feel comfortable with their other systems. But then it's kind of annoying because you want to like pull changes and you're having to like, it's erasing your main character or you have to overwrite. It's not really fun. So we made another way, and also like how do you run multiple characters at the same time? So we made another way to actually pass in characters. You can create a character in another format called JSON, which we'll talk about in a second, and then you can pass it in as the character file that you use, and it will override the default character. So let's do that. If I want to pass in a character, I type in pnpm run start space dash dash characters equals, and you can see I've got a Tate and a Trump in here. I'm not trying to get political or anything. I just think that they ended up there because they're both kind of funny. And you pass in the path to that, like tate.character.json, and hopefully it works. And it will tell you what character it loads. You can see no such file or directory. Eliza to new agent characters. Yeah, well, that's because it needs to be. If you get that error, it's a path issue. I thought I fixed this. Maybe not. But then let's add that so it's like dot dot slash, because you can see it's actually not. It's trying to open the agent thing, agent path. I don't know, whatever. It was yelling at us. So we pass in the character. Let me just go over that again. We have a package called agent here, and it's actually running out of this agent package. So when I type in this characters, it's relative to the agent package. I fixed this before. I think I got regressed. But just in case, if you're like, I don't know why it's not working, like you saw me do before, I'm passing in a path relative to where we are, doing dash dash characters. It's cool, but it's going to error. And it's going to error right here because it says no such file open Eliza to new agent characters Tate. But actually, it's not an agent. It's next to agent, right? So I have to pass in this dot dot slash from relative to the agent folder characters Tate character. Cool. And that should run Tate. Okie doke. Looking good. Now this all works. And now from here, I should be able to say, hey, what's up? But it's not going to work probably. Oh yeah, actually it will. But it's going to take a while. So I'm going to take whatever I said. Hey, what's up? It's going to turn it into a vector, which is a series of numbers. It's going to return that vector, and then I can use that to search things like knowledge and stuff like that. So if you haven't downloaded this before, you have to download the embedding model. And you can see it's trying to use Claude, but I don't have a Claude API key here. I can go get one really easily, though. So and I probably will. If I go into the tate.character.json, you'll see it's just the exact same format as the other one. It just doesn't have it doesn't have anything in here. We actually don't even need this stuff. It could be an empty array. It's pretty dead. It's pretty empty. We just added some funny like examples of messages and lore and stuff. It's pretty bare bones. I could say OpenAI, and I probably get the same problem. I could also say local llama local is llama underscore local. We should have that somewhere. So I can use local llama, and if I run this, I can actually download the local llama, and it should work. Somebody's asking pnpm saying one package